Trump's White House is erasing history. And I have an article from the White House regarding this. So lately, Trump has been threatening the Smithsonian, saying that if they don't get rid of displays that he doesn't like, then they're going to lose funding. This is just like the most cut and dry authoritarian, like erasing of history and like any type of progressive culture that goes against conservatism. And I'm going to sort of go through this article and why it's like bullshit and fucked up and weird. And so this is a post by the White House. It says, President Trump is right about the Smithsonian, which is insane for like, why would any normal, like well-adjusted person trust a source that is saying that they're right? Like, this is the White House saying that the current president is right. This was probably written by a fucking Nazi. The National Museum of African American History and Culture debuted a series to educate people on a society that privileges white people and whiteness, which it does, defining so-called white dominant culture as ways white people and their traditions, attitudes, and ways of life have been normalized over time, and portraying the nuclear family, work ethic, and intellect as white qualities rooted in racism. Now, we're going to see a lot of little things in this article where the White House is being just outright anti-intellectual. When they say that portraying the nuclear family, work ethic, and intellect as white qualities rooted in racism, they mean things like IQ is rooted in racism, because it's like a biased type of measurement that favors people who are raised in Western societies and who have white culture. The work ethic thing it's an extension of like the fact that like minority groups are underprivileged in the US. And the nuclear family is literally like a modern creation. For the most part, in all of history, we've done communal living, and that it's the America wants to create these isolated, like micro fascist house states where the dad is allowed to like do anything he wants to his wife and his children. They're basically his possessions, and that's wrong. Like, that's just outwardly wrong, and that is the like diametrically like opposed position to recognizing that the nuclear family is part of white supremacy. Okay, so they call Abram X. Kendi a hardcore woke activist. They complain about this modern dance performance, which uses the phrase wealthy, pale, and male. Obviously, like, these things aren't like meant to be like, oh, we are just anybody who's light skinned is there for controlling society. I mean, that's no left wing person thinks that. That is like literally like what right wingers think about like Jews and stuff. You know, we recognize that it's more like a complex situation, but this country was built off of slavery. It had a ruling class of whites who owned people, and we're still recovering from that. So the next part, the American History Museum displays the intersex inclusive progress pride flag, which it's just a flag that says that gay people are welcome and included. I mean, it's gay, trans. I mean, there's black and brown on there too. The intersectional pride flag is like, I don't even know who made that. It's not it's not that big of a fucking deal. Like, who fucking cares except for like someone who wants to hate gay people and is mad that society is saying they can't hate gay people anymore. And it's not even most of society. It's some people in society. It's people like me saying, hey, you shouldn't hate gay people. And you being like, well, apparently fucking everybody like fucking hates white people now. Ugh. The National Portrait Gallery features art commemorating the act of illegally crossing the inclusive and exclusionary southern border, making it a finalist for one of its awards. And I mean, the note I would have on something like this is, we don't like, we don't police the northern border like we do the southern border. The southern border we treat like this like fucking war zone, and the northern border we don't. And the reason why is because brown people live in Mexico and white people live in Canada. That's the fucking reason. This next part literally says the Museum of African Art displayed an exhibit on works of speculative fiction that bring to life an immersive feminist and sacred utopia inspired by the legend of Drexia. I don't know what that is. The underwater kingdom populated by the children of pregnant women who have been thrown overboard or jumped into the ocean during the Middle Passage. This is the White House saying that this speculative fiction, a fictional story, shouldn't be allowed in a museum. I wonder how many fictional stories are right-wing coded and allowed in museums. Do you think the fucking Washington chopping down a cherry tree is in museums? I'm sure it fucking is. The American History Museum's LGBTQ history exhibit seeks to understand evolving and overlapping identities, such as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, transsexual, transvestite, mahu, homosexual, fluid, invert, earning, third sex, two sex, gender bending, sapphist, hijra, friend of Dorothy, drag queen, king, and many other experiences. And includes articles on LGBTQ plus inclusion and skateboarding and the rise of drag ball culture in the 1920s. These articles, both of these articles are historical articles. The first one is talking about how skateboarding was mostly led by straight people and that it was very exclusionary, but nowadays it's a little different because of like activists in the like skateboarding scene. The next article is about the 1920s, and before the 1920s, I think it starts in like 1870, drag ball culture, which funny name, but it's like real history of gay men dressing up as women and doing like performances and doing like these balls. And that's just, that happened. It was illegal and people had to do it secretly because it was illegal. And that happened. Now it isn't illegal, but what the right wants to do is make it illegal again. They want to put people back into the shadows, shove gay people back into the closet, and erase lesbians, erase trans people, erase anybody that isn't exclusion, like that they can't actively like exclude through just like social conditions, which is like, you know, they're going to push men to marry and have children even if they have gay thoughts. But with trans people, they just want to exclude them from society completely. The National Museum of American Latino features programming highlighting animated Latinos and Latinas with disabilities with content from a disabled plus-size actress and an ambulatory wheelchair user who educates on their identity being Latinx, LGBTQ+, and disabled. Disabled people exist. Disabled Latinos exist. Disabled Latinas exist. Disabled non-binary people who don't identify with a gender exist. Latinx. Who fucking cares what it's called? You could lengthen it to non-binary Latino/Latina person. I mean, or you could even say Latino. It doesn't fucking matter, and most people don't really care about it. People just don't want to be fucking discriminated against. Like, and that's what this post is. This is discrimination because all of the white culture is allowed to exist, but this black disabled culture, fuck that. This Latino disabled culture, fuck that. They don't want any type of thing that isn't just like straight white guys. It's so fucking obvious. And it's through the White House. This is when all of these people refer to they live in like the Matrix. This is they live. This is the Matrix. This is the fucking conspiracy. And all of those people, they're fucking sucking Donald Trump's nuts. I got kind of upset and just stopped talking about it before I was actually finished with the segment. So we're going to finish that real quick. So this next part under this Statue of Liberty holding a tomato, which is, I guess, un-American, it says, the National Museum of American Latino features an anti-American exhibit that defines Latino history as centuries of victimhood and exploitation and suggests the U.S. is stolen land and characterizes U.S. history as rooted in colonization. Of course, that's just on its face true. We were colonized by the British. We were a British colony that revolted in a revolution and then took the rest of the land in the U.S. Like, those are objectively things that happened. Now, the White House wants to make it like a battle of narratives where one side is manifest destiny and, you know, we were destined to become like owners of this land. The other side is saying, well, destiny isn't real. You came here, you killed a bunch of people, you invaded the land, you took territory in wars, and then you said that it always belonged to you. So pretty dumb. But also it gets a little bit dirtier the way that they're talking in this. It says, the exhibit displays a quote from Claudia de la Cruz, a socialist nominee for president and director of Anti-American Hate Group. So when they say Anti-American Hate Group, if you go to that, it's actually a guy at the American Enterprise Institute calling Code Pink, which is like a LGBTQ activist organization, calling them a hate group over some type of over some story about the Uyghur genocide. Not to get too deep into the details of that, but obviously a single statement by a political group doesn't mean that they're a hate group. And it's very funny to watch the exact type of people who defend real hate groups say that Code Pink, something which is a civil rights activist organization, is a hate group. Then there's another part where they say the exhibit remains prominently featured on its website alongside a quote from Communist Party USA's Angela Davis, who was among the FBI's top 10 most wanted refugees. Now they say this, but if you click on here, she was on the most wanted list because her guns were used in a kidnapping and a murder, but she was exonerated in prison over it. She was only on the FBI most wanted list for the temporary amount of time it took to arrest her and prove that she was innocent. So of course that's more fucking dirty white supremacist tactics trying to hide like the truth, which is that these are civil rights activists who cared about stuff like desegregation, you know. The National Museum of American Latino, also they're using a lot of different different museums about specific ethnic groups as like, oh, this is anti-American rhetoric. What does that say? When people who represent ethnic groups are anti-American, that means that you're explicitly white supremacist. That means that you believe in explicit, not just the implicit stuff we've been doing the last 40 years, but explicit white supremacy. The American History Museum's Upending 1620 exhibit claims pilgrims are a myth instead framing them as colonizers. Pilgrims are a American myth. You know, the American myth is that they came here to escape religious prosecution, which is mostly true, but it's also people were paid and encouraged to move to America because it's land. It was free land for a lot of like aristocratic families. You know, it wasn't just poor people escaping here to get away from the religious persecution of the Catholic Church. That's sort of like a Protestant American myth we built. Like, and myths aren't exactly false; they're bound in with the truth, but they say a narrative. You know. The American History Museum's exhibit about Benjamin Franklin focuses almost solely on slavery, directing visitors to learn more about his electrical experiments and the enslaved people of his household, noting his scientific accomplishments were enabled by the social and economic system he worked in. So that's weird. It's weird that they just wouldn't want us talking about that too, you know? It's ridiculous. The National Portrait Gallery was set to feature a painting depicting a transgender Statue of Liberty before the artist withdrew it. So what is this even supposed to say? What is this supposed to say as a negative? I want you to say in the comments why the transgender Statue of Liberty is negative. I just want you to do that. The former interim director of the future Smithsonian American Women's History Museum declared the museum will be inclusive of biological men posing as women. In other words, transgender women who are legally recognized as women in many places. So it's It's all right wing political, like nuclear family type of propaganda. You know, they don't want anybody to be gay. They don't want anybody to be trans. They don't want anybody to be gender non-conforming. They don't want anybody to believe in like systemic racism or the racism of the past that wasn't even systemic, but like interpersonal, intrapersonal, and like. This doesn't even get into the history of lynchings. You know, I don't see the word lynchings on here once, and yeah, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that this is the culture we live in now. But it's also part of the culture we've always lived in.